November the 2nd, 1957. A lonely stretch of Route 114 cuts through the cotton fields west of Levelland, Texas. The sun has long since set, leaving only an impenetrable blackness beyond the reach of a car's headlights. For farmhand Pedro Salcedo, the drive home is routine, a familiar ritual at the end of a long day. But tonight, the familiar becomes the unknown. At approximately 10:30 p.m., a flash of brilliant blue-green light streaks across the sky. It is not lightning. It is something else. Down the highway, his truck's engine begins to sputter. The headlights flicker, dimming from a steady beam into a weak, dying glow. The radio, once playing softly, crackles and falls silent. Then, his engine quits completely. The truck coasts to a stop, plunging him into absolute darkness and silence. Through his windshield, Salcedo observes a cigar-shaped object, glowing with an intense, noiseless light, passing directly overhead. It moves swiftly, estimated to be 200 feet in length. As the object disappears into the horizon, the truck's electrical systems suddenly surge back to life. The headlights blaze, the radio hums, and with a turn of the key, the engine roars back to its normal state. Salcedo, shaken, drives not home, but toward the nearest telephone to contact the Levelland Police Department. His report would be the first of many. The Levelland case had officially begun. What unfolded over the next 2.5 hours remains one of the most concentrated and well-documented waves of unidentified aerial phenomena in the files of Project Blue Book. A series of encounters, reported by at least 15 credible witnesses across a small, isolated region of West Texas, would challenge investigators and leave behind a file thick with contradictions. The events near Levelland were not a singular sighting. They were a pattern. Multiple independent observers scattered across dozens of square miles reported the same sequence of events: the sudden appearance of a bright, glowing egg-shaped or oval object, the simultaneous failure of their vehicle's electrical systems, and the immediate restoration of power once the object departed. Shortly after Salcedo's call, the police station phone rang again. A man, driving 4 miles east of Levelland, reported an identical experience. A brightly lit, egg-shaped object had sat motionless on the highway, blocking his path. As he approached, his engine died and his headlights went out. The witness, terrified, abandoned his car and watched from a distance as the object, after a few minutes, lifted vertically into the sky and vanished. As soon as it was gone, his vehicle's functions returned. He was able to restart his car and proceed. The dispatcher, initially skeptical, soon found his skepticism eroding under the weight of incoming calls. The reports were not just similar, they were functionally identical. Another call came in, this time from a truck driver, Jose Alvarez, who encountered the object 11 miles north of town. His story mirrored the others precisely. A brilliant, oval light on the road. A stalled engine. Dead headlights. Then, once the object ascended and disappeared, an instant return to normal operation. The consistency of the witness accounts was startling. These were not vague lights in the distant sky. These were close-range encounters with a physical object that appeared to exert a direct, measurable influence on its immediate environment. The phenomenon was interactive. It was systematic, and it was causing a growing sense of alarm across the rural community. Sheriff Weir Clem, a man accustomed to the predictable rhythms of small-town law enforcement, initially dismissed the calls as a prank. The sheer volume, however, forced him to investigate. Accompanied by Deputy Pat McCulloch, Clem began to patrol the farm roads surrounding Levelland. For a time, the highways were quiet, the night still. But at 12:05 a.m., while driving down the same stretch of Route 114, Sheriff Clem became a witness himself. A brilliant, reddish-orange oval appeared ahead, illuminating 1,000 feet of pavement. Clem stated it looked like a brilliant red sunset. As he watched, it rose from the horizon, changed color to a bluish-green, and moved rapidly across the sky. Though his own vehicle did not stall, the direct visual confirmation by the county's chief lawman transformed the incident from a collection of public reports into an official event. The wave of sightings continued. Newell Wright, a student from Texas Tech, was driving just outside Levelland when his car's ammeter jumped wildly. The engine sputtered, and his lights faded out. He got out to check under the hood, finding nothing wrong. As he closed it, he saw a silent, glowing egg-shaped object resting on the road a few hundred yards away. Startled, he jumped back in his car and tried the ignition, but it was dead. After a few minutes, the object lifted straight up, like a yo-yo, and vanished. Instantly, his car started without issue. By 1:30 a.m., the local police switchboard had logged over a dozen similar reports from sober, credible citizens, including farmers, truckers, and families. The pattern was undeniable. A luminous, egg-shaped object, vehicle engine and electrical failure upon close approach, and immediate system recovery upon the object's departure. Given the number of witnesses and the involvement of local law enforcement, the incident quickly drew the attention of the United States Air Force. The official investigation was assigned to Project Blue Book, the Air Force's standing study of unidentified flying objects. An investigator was dispatched from Reese Air Force Base to interview the witnesses. The official conclusion, however, was reached with remarkable speed, almost before the investigation had properly begun. On November 3rd, even as reports were still being compiled, the Air Force issued a public statement. The cause, they declared, was ball lightning, or St. Elmo's fire, generated by severe weather conditions, specifically an electrical storm and rain. The witnesses, they suggested, had simply been confused by an unusual but natural weather phenomenon. This explanation was immediately and forcefully challenged. According to the official weather reports from the area, the night of November 2nd was calm and clear. Rain and lightning did not arrive in the Levelland area until hours after the sightings had ceased. Sheriff Clem publicly refuted the Air Force's conclusion, stating unequivocally, "There was no lightning or storm of any kind. Everybody who saw it is wrong, or the Air Force is." The witnesses, many of whom had lived their entire lives on the Texas plains, were adamant. They knew what ball lightning looked like, and they knew what a thunderstorm was. What they had seen was neither. It was a structured, self-propelled craft that moved with intelligent, controlled purpose. The internal documentation within Project Blue Book reveals a more complex and contradictory picture. While the public-facing explanation was ball lightning, the lead scientist for the project, Dr. J. Allen Hynek, was privately skeptical. In his notes, he highlighted the glaring inconsistencies. Ball lightning is a rare, spherical phenomenon, typically small and short-lived. It does not appear as a 200-foot-long oval, sit on a highway, or cause consistent electromagnetic interference with vehicles. The electrical storm explanation was even weaker, contradicted by official meteorological data. Hynek's own memos suggest the case was prematurely and unsatisfactorily closed. He wrote that the Levelland incident was one of the most impressive UFO cases in the Blue Book files. Specifically, because of the high witness count and the documented electromagnetic effects. The contradictions between the official, dismissive explanation and the raw, unanalyzed data are stark. The Air Force's final report lists the cause as weather ball lightning, but it fails to account for the core elements of the testimony. It does not explain how a weather event could systematically disable the ignition and electrical systems of multiple combustion engine vehicles. It does not explain how this phenomenon could appear as a solid, structured, oval object to over a dozen separate observers in different locations. And it does not explain how it could move with apparent purpose, lifting vertically and accelerating at high speed. The Levelland case was labeled Explained, but the explanation itself was inconsistent with the available evidence. Decades later, the Levelland sightings remain a classic within the study of UFO phenomena, a textbook example of a high-strangeness, high-credibility event involving profound electromagnetic interference. The file contains no claims of alien beings or extraterrestrial communication. It contains only a series of sober, factual reports from ordinary people who encountered something extraordinary on a dark Texas night. The official explanation satisfied the press, but it failed to satisfy the witnesses, the local sheriff, or even, it seems, the Air Force's own scientific consultant. Based on the documented evidence collected by Project Blue Book itself, The events of November 2nd and 3rd, 1957, remain unexplained. The official conclusion stands in direct conflict with the witness testimony, leaving the case as a persistent and well-documented mystery in the annals of the U.S. Air Force.